Not all is as it seems. It's easy to point the finger when someone dies following an animal attack. But sometimes fate was coming for them anyway, and the animal attack was just a painful coincidence. Hit like and subscribe. This is Fierce. Donny Morrison was remembered by his classmates as a cheeky boy who was always the joker at school. Now at 68 years old, his former classmates could see that he hadn't changed a bit. A reunion had brought the men and women together 60 years later. They had lived a lifetime apart, but it also felt like just yesterday that some of them were sitting in the classrooms and walking the school grounds as they were now. Donny was attending Coomala State School's 100th anniversary, along with hundreds of other people. He had fond memories of the place and was among many former pupils to attend the celebratory event. It took place on September 9, 2023. The school was situated 60 kilometers south of Mackay, on Queensland's north coast. It was surrounded by bush and cane farms in the rural and coastal town of Coomala. Donny had never left the area. It was his hometown. He and his friend Lloyd Younger were socializing that evening when Lloyd suddenly felt something sharp on his ankle. He instinctively kicked his foot and looked down. There, attached to his leg, was a snake. But this wasn't just any snake. They believed that it was an eastern brown snake. Its body was shimmering, its glossy scales a beautiful brown-gray color, each scale outlined perfectly in a dark brown line. They could see its round, jet-black eyes, its muscular body as it gripped Lloyd's leg. Native to eastern and central Australia, as well as southern New Guinea, the snake is considered the second most venomous in the world after the inland taipan. It's widespread throughout the dry areas of Australia, and despite popular misconceptions, it's common in urban areas as well as the rural bush. Locals know the damage they can cause. The eastern brown snake is responsible for the most snakebite fatalities in Australia. Donny knew he had to act fast to save his friend. With little regard for his own safety, he leapt into action. Talking to his friend to keep him calm, he slowly bent down closer to the snake. Lloyd was starting to panic as he knew the dangers from the eastern brown snake, but having his friend there was reassuring. Carefully, Donny brought his hands around the back of the snake. When they were hovering just inches from the coiled reptile, he made a grab for it. But in the dusky light of the evening, he misjudged the movement of the snake's head, and it spotted Donny's hands coming for it. The snakes are lightning fast, striking at 2 meters per second. Although this was a relatively slow strike speed for a snake, it was quick enough to catch Donny. In a split second, it released its grip on Lloyd and whipped around. It bit down on Donny's arm, and he let out a cry. But with the other hand, he managed to seize the reptile. He held firmly onto its long body. He could feel the power of its muscles in his hand. He rushed over to the edge of the lawn, carrying the writhing, wriggling snake with him. He wanted to get it as far away from the guest as possible. He held it out at arm's length whilst it struck at him repeatedly. He managed to avoid the strikes each time as he arched his body away from the deadly blows. But then it caught him once more on the chest before Donny flung it into the undergrowth, away from others at the party. He instinctively rubbed his chest where the snake had delivered its bite. He turned around to see the celebration still going on the school field. He could hear the chatter of the crowd. He could see the familiar faces of his former classmates, and he walked back over. But he began to feel faint. He staggered back to Lloyd and collapsed on the ground by his feet. Those who saw him drop to the floor rushed to his side. Donny clutched his chest. He could feel the venom surging through his bloodstream, his heart pumping the toxic substance to every corner of his body. His head was pounding. Sweat dripped from his brow. While 3 milligrams of the eastern brown snake's venom are enough to kill a man, the population of snakes in Queensland are known to produce 3 times that amount when they strike their prey. Donny was in serious trouble. Anti-venom for the eastern brown snake has been around since 1956 and is effective at treating the victim, but that requires them to get to a medical center before their body gives in. Donny was struggling to breathe. His breath came in short, sharp bursts. His chest felt like it was being squeezed, like a huge weight was pushing down on him. His vision became blurry, and he succumbed to the bite. Those by his side immediately rolled him on his back and began performing CPR. It was an immensely stressful scene for those who witnessed it. Emergency services were called, and when paramedics arrived, they performed CPR on Donny for 30 minutes. They tried to restart his heart using a defibrillator, but nothing worked. He was gone. While Donny couldn't be saved, there was still hope for Lloyd. A helicopter was called in, and he was airlifted to McKay Base Hospital, around 60 kilometers north of the school. He arrived in time and was treated for the snake bite. He was released from the hospital the following day. The celebratory event had come crashing to a devastating end. It was shut down and everyone dispersed, feeling a sense of shock and loss. What was supposed to be an enjoyable evening, months in the making, had turned into a tragedy as Kumala lost one of its own. As word spread of Donny's accident and untimely death, it made news headlines. It seemed he was yet another Australian who had fallen victim to the eastern brown snake. He had become a statistic, adding to the 1 or 2 deaths caused by that species of snake every year in Australia. But there was more to it than that. Although there were visible bites from the snake on his arm and his chest, the coroner recorded no venom found in his body. He had been bitten, there was no doubt about that, but eastern brown snakes are reported as delivering dry bites 80% of the time. This is where the snake bites the victim, but does not inject venom. In some snakes, this can be due to a failure on the snake's part from it feeling unwell, having damaged or empty venom glands, or misjudging the distance to the prey and missing altogether. But when a dry bite is delivered on purpose, as is often the case with eastern brown snakes, they do so as a warning. When they bite defensively, there is no need to inject venom. The strike alone can repel the threat. It seems that not only Donny received a dry bite, but so did Lloyd. The snake was sending them a warning. Lloyd may have inadvertently stumbled or stepped on the snake. It was hidden in the grass in the fading light of the evening. Instinctively and defensively, it lashed out, striking Lloyd's ankle and lashing on with its body. It wasn't trying to capture any prey, and it wasn't acting aggressively, so there was no need for the use of venom. So what happened to Donny if the snake didn't inject its venom into him? A full report on his death has not yet been released, but it's believed that he suffered a cardiac arrest due to some unknown underlying health condition. His heart attack may have been triggered by the fear he felt while dealing with one of the most venomous snakes in the world, but it was not as a direct result of the venom itself. Following Donny's death, his family made a heartfelt statement thanking those who rushed to his aid. They offered support to those who tried to revive him and to those who witnessed the traumatic event. They said that Donny had been a popular member of the Kumala community and would be missed by many people.